answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't. Right. There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, there was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this, we are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
Those are the words of Dan Bongino, current assistant to Kash Patel, FBI director. Now, this is addressing one of the three issues. They said they were going to get answers for the American public as soon as they can. One, who was the J6 bomber, the guy going around and planting bombs on that January 6th date? Pictures of him everywhere. I mean, you cannot move anywhere, especially in D.C., that you're not going to be on a camera of some type. And they could not find him, still had not found him after 4 years, but Bongino suggesting we're having closure on that case coming as well, sometime soon. And, of course, then we have the issue of the Epstein case and the thoughts and questions and jokes. Epstein killed himself? No, he didn't. Well, Bongino is saying, based on the tape we see, which we are now going to share with you, the public, once we can enhance it, and I don't suspect they're going to manipulate it. I expect it's going to be as true as it can be to show that he was by himself. It's not going to show the actual execution of himself, hanging, suicide. Maybe because it's not actually on any camera. See, there have been a lot of questions about what cameras were operating or were not. Epstein was supposedly on suicide watch, remember? You don't leave a guy like that unattended. But that raises the other questions. Who was supposed to be watching him? Where were they? Who was doing what? What cameras were working? Which ones weren't? Well, Bongino says there is going to be more coming out on that. So that will help put to rest at least that concern. For some. I know for many it's not going to be enough. But I am going to accept Dan Bongino as being factual and accurate. The last thing he wants to do for his own credibility, serving his years as Secret Service, and then serving, of course, now with Patel, and prior to that having his own syndicate empire, he's not going to put his credibility on the line over a lie. So we're apparently going to get something more on the J6. And, of course, then there's that other issue, cocaine in the White House. Who put it there? Who left it there? That's yet to be resolved as well. We'll continue to monitor it, as I told you we would. Glad to have you on board for hour number one, Larry Connors USA. Here we are, May 30, on a Friday, May 30, 2025. And glad to have you with us. And reminding you, when we're on the air, Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m., we are streaming video as it's being broadcast so you can watch the program. How do you do that? You go to Rumble. NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Larry Connors USA Rumble, or Facebook or Twitter. And everything later goes up as a podcast at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, where you can also push a button, subscribe. We will send it to your email box on a daily basis, so you don't have to search for it. It'll be there for you. and then you listen at your pleasure. Because I know a lot of you have your own life to live. I understand that. And life has challenges and family. And I would always say, put your family first. But when you have time and you want to go back and listen to a program, please do. And more importantly, share it with others. Would you do that? I want to take a moment to remind you that starting next month, which would be next month, is very soon, like in Sunday. But we're starting, June is Vic for Vets Month. Oh yeah. June is Pride Month, right? Well, we're done with that here at NewsTalkSTL. Here's what we're doing. A full month of honoring men and women who have served our country. You can submit someone currently in service, who died in service, someone that you won't recognize either as a family member or a friend. How do you do that? You simply mail information, their name, rank, what information you have to share, to Ken, that's Vic's producer, Ken at NewsTalkSTL.com. Ken at NewsTalkSTL.com. And starting Monday, Vic will daily read someone that deserves a mention. More than a mention, obviously, but we're going to try to spread it out as far as we can for folks. Many of you have loved ones who maybe died for this country, suffered injuries, or maybe they're serving now. They don't have to be dead. They don't have died in service. If they serve their country in any way and you want recognition for them, you do it. Get your family and friends to do this as well. I want you to flood Ken's mailbox. Ken at NewsTalkSTL. Now, reminding you with Larry Connors USA, you do get news, you get opinion, you get analysis, and you get education. You leave each of our programs with more knowledge and more information than you had when you began listening that particular hour. And we'll prove it to you each and every day. In our next hour, by the way, how a bill to protect free speech has already been weaponized to be used against you. We've got a guest that's going to break it down for us. And later in this hour, what ICE agents found in Barack Obama's backyard, Martha's Vineyard, what they found. And did Obama know they were there? It's very possible. Did he do anything about it? Did he do anything to assist? Did he do anything to stop the ICE agents? We'll break that story down for you as well as we move forward. We know that this administration has been filled with lies and lies and lies. Jake Tapper of CNN has already made it clear in his book, Original Sin, but he blames the Biden people. He doesn't blame reporters until eventually gets around saying, well, we should have done a better job. We should do, no kidding. But a third grader could have figured out the lies and made better reports than you guys were doing, because you were not just not covering, not omitting, you simply were covering up and helping conceal. Do you remember this litany of voices you're going to hear? You'll recognize the voices, how they cried out repeatedly, Joe Biden is just great.
We have a very bold and vibrant president in Joe Biden.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
The president has no impairment. The president...
You've never seen any.
I don't know how many ways I can say this.
I wish you could be in a room with him the way I often am, seeing how he is simultaneously focused on a big picture vision and very focused on details.
Is he fit? He's proven it. He is, and he can do the job. I think his experience has helped him be a great president.
I mean, you need a laugh track after every one of the remarks, don't you? Scott Jennings is one of the token conservatives they put on the CNN panel from time to time, and he's talking about how they were He was going with some others over to the White House to witness a pardon that Trump was signing off, not by auto pen, but with his actual signature. And he's comparing it to all these signatures of Biden supposedly signed off on pardons, and we do not know if they were authenticated or not. And therein again lies the difference between fact and fiction, lies and fake news.
I agree. It's being done out in the open. It's being done in the light of day. We're not doing it at the 11th hour here or as we're on our way up to the Capitol to see the next president being sworn in. And I might add, I don't think there's any doubt who's actually signing these pardons. You know, at the end of Biden's term, we had thousands of people that were pardoned or offered some kind of clemency for drug offenses. I have my doubts about whether Joe Biden signed all of those. And there's obviously, because of the new books that are out, clear reporting here that there was something of a Politburo running the White House at the end of the Biden administration when many of the most controversial pardons were issued. So in this case, Donald Trump, I think, is fully owning all of these decisions. And I agree with Ellie. In the Grimm case, if for no other reason than this paralysis that he suffered and the fact that he'd paid his debt, I think it's defensible.
Now, that's one of the cases he's talking about. But the bottom underscoring line I want you to keep in mind, this is being done in the light of day, not by auto pen. It's going to be done in front of a group to give a pardon that the president has decided should be granted. But the left is always going to continue to find, how can we chip away at truth and facts until we reduce it to dust, make it disappear entirely, rebuild it, reshape it in our mold. And Jake Tapper, again, the author of this book, Original Sin, as if he knew nothing about all of this happening while he was actually working. It's only after Biden's out of office, the revelation came to him in a midnight dream. I don't know. But now he's trying to peddle the lie, and he's got House Speaker Johnson in front of him. How are you going to explain to the people who don't believe that Medicaid monies are going to be cut from people who need it?
You're going to have to convince people like Susan Collins of Maine and Josh Hawley of Missouri who are worried about cuts that this bill proposes. President Trump repeatedly insisted he would not touch Medicaid and that Americans would not lose their insurance. Here's what he said just 5 days ago.
We're not changing Medicaid, and we're not changing Medicare, and we're not changing Social Security.
Can you guarantee that your voters who supported the election, particularly working-class voters, will not lose health insurance under this bill?
Oh, they won't lose health insurance?
The CBO found that nearly 8 million Americans will, in fact, lose their insurance coverage because of the changes this bill makes to Medicaid. So how do you reconcile that with what President Trump said?
It's directly in line with what the president said. I've said the same. We are not cutting Medicaid in this package. There's a lot of misinformation out there about this, Jake. The numbers of Americans who are affected are those that are entwined in our work to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. And what do I mean by that? You got more than 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. Medicaid is not intended for non-U.S. citizens.
Not intended for non-U.S. citizens. Simple as that. There's a major SCOTUS ruling for Trump regarding illegals I want to talk to you about. And there is a Dem coming out of the blue trying to be relevant once again on all of these issues. Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Okay, go ahead. Hi, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz here. I'm just outside the Crome Detention Center. I'm here to attempt to do a on-demand oversight visit, which is allowed by law, and make sure that I can inspect the conditions here at the Crome Detention Center. 2 detainees have died this year alone, and I'm very concerned about not only the living conditions here, but the health care and making sure that the folks here are taking good care of the detainees and following the law.
And looking for publicity. That's what she's doing. Stephen Miller of the White House says folks like Wasserman Schultz and the rest of the Democrats, they just continue to destroy their own credibility and numbers.
The Democrat Party has been thoroughly, completely radicalized. They're an open borders party. They're a communist party. They're a party that excuses violence and left-wing terrorism. They're a party that's polling at 21%. But if they keep fighting to spring illegal alien gang members loose from foreign countries and bring them back to terrorize our families, that 21% will go down to 15 and 10% and lower, because Americans, above all else, expect their government to keep them safe. And Donald Trump is fighting harder to keep our families safe than anyone who has ever sat behind that Resolute desk.
And you know what else is happening? The Nashville mayor is now being investigated for obstructing ICE agents. There's another example of a Democrat who's off the reservation. The tariff war and battles continue in the court, but Trump is still trying to move forward. And Treasury Secretary Besson said, we're not going to be stopped.
It seems highly inappropriate for the judiciary to wade in here when the Senate had the opportunity to override the president and didn't. So, in terms of separation of powers, the Senate has chosen not to exercise their powers, and the president absolutely has the right to set the trade agenda for the U.S. This administration is committed to fair trade, and we are striking the best deals for the American people, and anything that the courts do to get in the way, both harms the American people in terms of trade and in terms of tariff revenue.
And we all know that, and the opposition knows it, but they don't care. They don't care about America. And we are apparently very close to a couple of deals.
There are a couple of very large deals that are close. A couple of them are more complicated. And as we saw with the president's threat of 50% tariffs last Friday, the EU came to the table very quickly over the weekend. So now we've got the EU in motion also.
And what about China, specifically China, and that obviously started in a different place. How can you characterize those talks now?
I would say that they are a bit stalled. I believe that we will be having more talks with them in the next few weeks, and I believe we may at some point have a call between the president and party chair Xi.
That's pretty big breaking news. Could happen next week. Coming up, for better handling on how these tariffs are going down and the benefit they bring us, and also the new SCOTUS ruling today that regards and gives Trump additional protection for what he wants to do, I've got a guest coming up from the Heritage Foundation. She's an expert in immigration. She's going to tie it all together for us. Laura Reese. You don't want to miss this conversation coming up and learn about the victory for Trump in the Supreme Court. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
In all these years that Wellington Environmental has been my sponsor, I've never mentioned their duct cleaning services. Allergy season is here, and Wellington crews clean air ducts daily in homes and commercial buildings, also cleaning air handling units and diffusers in commercial facilities. Why? Well, because people will see black dirt and mold on the vents, or they are actually suffering from allergies. Don't be fooled by low-cost duct cleaning providers saying they charge only per vent, because once they get on site, the price will skyrocket. Wellington does not do this, never has. Wellington will give you an estimate, and you say Larry Connors, and immediately you get a 20% discount. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 314-644-4930. Make your home and business better, safer with Wellington. Be well with Wellington. Ackerman Toyota is #1 in sales for 2024. That is 2 years in a row. It's really no surprise. Ackerman has the largest customer lounge where you can relax, take your time choosing new or premium pre-owned. Ackerman at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Thank you for making Ackerman Toyota #1 2 years in a row. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. The Oak Street Inn and Lounge has some great news. The Speakeasy will now be open on Sundays, starting at 2. Open to the public. Great for those in the industry who'll want to enjoy a Sunday fun day. Plus, enjoy sushi and cocktails. What more could you want? You want to make sure you get the code. And how do you get the code to the Speakeasy? You go to the Facebook, Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. I'll see you at Oak Street Inn and Lounge in Cottleville.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
All right, my guest we had scheduled talking about the tariffs and what they can really mean and benefit our nation, and how they also fit into the immigration migrant issue. But there's also something else that popped today. I want to immediately get a response. We're talking about Laura Reese, who's head of Homeland Security Operations and Immigration Expert for the Heritage Foundation. Laura, welcome aboard.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, you know the issue I want to put in front of you. The Trump administration, according to the Supreme Court, as of today, can revoke temporary legal status for more than 500,000 immigrants. Will you explain?
Yes, this was one of the many mass parole programs that the Biden administration put into place, as well as temporary protected status. And this is something Secretary Mayorkas of Homeland Security grossly abused. But in both instances, the secretary has the absolute discretion to either parole an alien into the country and to terminate that parole, as well as to designate a country for temporary protected status and to terminate that designation. And in the case of the latter, temporary protected status, the statute clearly says there is no judicial review of that determination. So this was one of many losing cases that these advocacy groups are bringing against the Trump administration.
Now you keep mentioning, you keep saying statutory, so it's codified, it's in law.
That's right. The immigration statute lays out what's required to parole an alien in, and what is required to designate a country for temporary protected status. And like I said, in the latter case, the statute clearly says no judicial review for designating a country for temporary protected status.
Well, contrary to that, the dissenting response came from Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, writing that I now know what a woman is. Oh, I'm sorry. I made that up. I apologize. But she says the High Court, quote, plainly botched its assessment, undervalued the devastating consequences of allowing the government to precipitously upend lives and livelihoods of nearly 500,000 non-citizens.
Yeah, this is now the second time I've seen that similar language in two different cases where they say it is unfair, it's against the public interest to upend the lives of so many people. Well, blame the Biden administration for dangling this false carrot in front of these people to come here and to stay here, because the Biden administration violated the law in doing that. The Trump administration is in the right to terminate these programs because the Biden administration violated the law in doing this. But the bottom line is for the left is they do not want people deported. They wanted the masses to come here illegally, and they are fighting mightily to keep them here and to prevent their deportation, no matter how illogical or how sheer emotional their arguments are.
So how does this tie in, those arguments and the left arguments sometimes? I'm sorry to put the onus on you trying to explain their rationale, but tie into the battle over tariffs and saying there's another thing that's going to hurt people.
Well, the Trump administration is using tariffs as a tool, as a piece of statecraft for negotiation. As Trump has said for many years, decades really, that the U.S. has been taken advantage of by other countries with trade. And in one sense, he is trying to correct for that and stop being, stop allowing America to be everyone else's doormat when it comes to trade, but also as a negotiating tool for good trade deals and for other foreign affairs matters.
And to that extent, there was an economic forecast that what we would see regarding this latest report, we would see that we had gone from a $162 billion deficit in trade goods to $143 billion. The numbers are in, and they show $87.6 billion, so the deficit in goods contracted way more than expected in April.
Yeah, that's good news. I mean, he's a businessman. He knows what he's doing better than many past presidents who weren't willing to use this tool. And other countries have responded and have offered trade deals and investment. And so I think we'll continue to see this good trajectory.
They're also saying that this decline is probably an extension of goods that already been bought. Business and household provisions are already stocked, so you could expect that. And yet, at the same time, they were off a forecast of $143 billion when it really went to $87 billion. So I don't know how much I buy that little lie either.
Well, many of the naysayers will say anything as long as it's against what Trump is doing. So they try and have it both ways.
Yeah, and the other thing they want to point out, it's going to cost Americans more. Going to cost more, and yet prices barely climbed in April. The annual rate of inflation below the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Personal income accelerating.
That's right. And, it encourages more Americans to buy American products. And that's a good thing so that we can increase manufacturing, increase jobs here. And that's what's so needed when so many of our communities and small towns were hollowed out because jobs went abroad. And so now the pendulum is swinging back in a good direction for U.S. and for Americans.
And in that process of the jobs, there are so many out there that are available, 8 million, I believe, 7+ million. And yet we're being told that if we take all of our illegals out of the country, we won't have do any work for us. Anyone would do work for us.
Yes, the claim that Americans won't do this job or that job is both false and insulting. Americans have historically been very hard workers and continue to be hard workers. That sort of comment is made by elitists to justify keeping large numbers of foreign workers here. And it's, Americans voted against that. And if these elitists got out of their elite bubbles and went to real America, in the Midwest, the South, you name it, they would see hardworking Americans doing those same jobs.
Now, do you see a time that maybe for work visas, much like we had during the 50s and 60s, the Bracero type program where folks would be allowed to come in and help plant crops or harvest crops? Now we're much more mechanized, so in many ways you don't need that. But do you see something like that evolving once we get past this massive illegal invasion, although they don't want to admit it, illegal invasion?
Well, for agriculture, we already have a agricultural guest work program. And not only that, but it's uncapped, it's unlimited. So there's really no reason that agricultural employers shouldn't be using that program if they need the foreign labor to supplement domestic labor to get the job done. But unfortunately, too many employers continue to hire illegal aliens rather than use pre-existing lawful temporary programs to undercut competition for ease, convenience, you name it. And yet then they'll continue to argue, well, we need more visas. Well, it's available. And what this also does is it discourages mechanization, say, in the agricultural arena. And so that's what we're facing right now. And it needs to be, the law needs to be enforced. It's available, and there's too much fraud that exists because people want to go the easy, cheap route.
And what is the other part? I have seen numbers, and you're the expert, but I thought I saw numbers that only 1 out of 5 illegals in the country are bothering to go work on a farm anyway. They don't want to work on the farm. They want to live in the big city and in the Big Apple and enjoy all the entities and the things they have in big communities in the USA that they don't have in their place, which is basically poverty-stricken farmland.
I mean, I don't have that exact stat, but I will tell you that often agriculture is kind of an entree job for foreign workers coming here. They may start there because they see it as a way to get a foothold in the U.S.
Right.
But then move to other types of industry or, like you say, more urban areas instead of agricultural areas.
And if they come in under the work program that is available, if the companies or farmers would hire them, that is a plus for our community if they need those jobs done, right?
Yes, I mean, but the point is to supplement, not for it to be the entire form of that industry.
Right.
And that's true for all industries, non-agricultural as well. If you think about high-tech, high-skilled, we've got employers saying, well, we need more H-1B visas because we don't have Americans qualified or trained to do these jobs. Again, false. And it's this perpetual self-licking ice cream, if you will, by many of these employers, because that's who they want to hire for a variety of reasons.
And they have their lives down pat. Laura Reese with the Heritage Foundation, as always, thank you for your insight.
Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, these numbers are not looking good for those who thought the sky was going to fall with the tariffs. There is a new warning the Saudis are issuing to Iran. Stand by.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I've got a phone number for you and a website where you can take a free, quick survey to learn how to use artificial intelligence, AI, to put your company on a fast track to the future. Here's the number. It's a 636 area code, 636-689-0545. 689-0545. This is PRI Global. And recently, the St. Louis Business Journal named PRI Global as a leading IT consulting company. 25 years working with hundreds of companies, several Fortune 500, locally and around the world. PRI Global has its own AI lab to develop what's best for your company. Take the free survey and be on your way to the future. 636-689-0545. 689-0545. Or go direct PRIGlobal.ai. PRIGlobal.ai. You want the best place to watch baseball or any sport and be able to enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys? Lit Cigar Lounge. Lit has so many events each month. You need to constantly check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook. You don't want to miss anything. Plus, you can order food from Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, delivered within minutes right to your table. By the way, we're in the season for great patio dining. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta has your table waiting. Renewal by Andersen has a great deal for you. $279 off every window. $729 off every patio or entry door. No payments. 0 interest for 18 months. Andersen products increase a home's value by at least 15%. Renewal by Andersen is the full-service window and door replacement division of Andersen. RBA STL. RBA STL. Hey, if you're 50 or older, you do not want to take any risk with your money. In fact, you want Leslie Consulting. My friend Bob Leslie can show you a gain and retain plan. It means that you never lose. Plus, you get up to a 20% bonus on day one. Leslie Consulting, a leader in brokerage and risk management. 314-721-0066. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is NewsTalk STL.
Must be the whiskey. I've been drinking to remember and drinking to forget. I got I love you on my mind. I got Jim Beam on my breath, and loneliness has got the rest. I've got nothing left within me. It must be the whiskey.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Saudi Arabia's defense minister delivered a blunt warning to Iranian officials in Tehran last month. Take U.S. President Donald Trump's offer to negotiate a nuclear agreement seriously or risk war with Israel. King Salman bin Abdulaziz, concerned about regional instability, sent his son Prince Khalid bin Salman to deliver the message directly to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, according to two Gulf sources and two Iranian officials. Prince Khalid met Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, Armed Forces Chief of Staff Mohammad Bagheri, and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi behind closed doors on April 17th inside Tehran's presidential compound, the sources said. While media outlets covered the 37-year-old prince's visit, they did not report the content of his message. Sources said Prince Khalid, who served as Saudi ambassador to Washington during Trump's first term, warned that the U.S. president had little patience for prolonged negotiations.
That is pretty stunning information. The talks, as you heard, took place last month. Word just now coming out as to how stern the warning was from Saudis to Iran. Take Trump's offer and negotiate a nuclear agreement. Take it as a serious opportunity to avoid a risk of war with Israel. The fact that the word is now coming out that this meeting that took place on April 17, involving King Solomon's son to go in his place, makes it clear that they are worried there's going to be instability in the peace because Israel will take out Iran if they continue working on nuclear weapons, if they do not have an agreement. Trump has offered an olive branch. You cease all your nuclear capability programs. You give us access to anything and everything at any given moment. We will open up the sanctions. We will allow trade with your country again and help you and your people. Of course, the leaders of the country really could care less about their people. Prince Khalid, who was there, was the Saudi ambassador to Washington during Trump's first term. And apparently he warned the Iranian officials Trump has little patience for drawn-out negotiations. 4 different sources are being quoted for that for them. In fact, just the week earlier, Trump had announced in the presence of the Prime Minister Netanyahu, direct talks were taking place with Iran. That was to, again, try to talk Iran into backing off its Iranian nuclear program. And we're just now learning about the 37-year-old prince's visit and the details being fully clarified. So let's make it clear again. In Tehran, the prince met with a group of senior Iranian officials and said Trump's team will want to reach a deal quickly. Your window for diplomacy could close fast. Because in one hand, it won't be in Trump's control. It'll be the Israeli decision. Oh, one other thing, by the way, reference of Saudi Arabia. They have a big complaint right now against Pakistan. They've issued a warning to Pakistan. Why would the Saudis be upset with Pakistan? They're saying basically, quit sending Pakistani beggars. They're using different visas to ship in Pakistanis from Pakistan into Saudi Arabia, and their only objection is, or rather their only object is to become countries. I mean, become beggars, I should say. And they're also trying to maybe create a country when you get down to it. But they are using these different visas to come in under the guise of religious pilgrimage. Well, the Saudis are saying that's a fake program. We all know it. You guys are just coming here to beg and basically invade our country, much as illegals have here. The Saudis will have a different way of dealing with those folks than we have been doing in this nation. And, of course, we still have efforts underway to try to make sure that foreign students coming into Harvard, one, will not get here, especially if they have anything of any tie to any foreign government that means us ill will. And we want to make sure that's enforced. And the spokesman for the White House, Steve Miller, says it very clear.
The president's authority to prevent foreign nationals from entering the country is one of his greatest and highest authorities. He is operating at the apex of executive power when he does so. Congress, likewise, has codified and cemented that authority by giving the Department of Homeland Security and the Secretary of State plenary authority to reject the entry of foreign nationals into this country, which is what makes that Harvard ruling from this crazy judge so obscene. Harvard defied multiple DHS subpoenas for information about its foreign students and about law-breaking and national security threats on campus. Harvard has engaged in decades of invidious, unlawful, and illegal race-based discrimination against American citizens. So Harvard is engaged in illegal and criminal conduct, and a judge is siding with Harvard's right to pad his pockets with foreign cash over the rights of American citizens and the American Constitution. The Democrat Party's philosophy right now is for foreigners, everything, for Americans, nothing. President Trump is fighting for American workers, for the blue-collar workers, and for the middle class of this country.
Stephen Miller said it in as direct comments as you can. And this U.S. District Judge, who had recently blocked the Department of Homeland Security's effort to stop Harvard University's enrollment of foreign students, is, stand by for it, here it comes. You don't know how big this is going to get. Be careful here. Is the same judge, surprise, surprise, who was overturned by the Supreme Court because he sided with the school's racist affirmative action policies. You remember that? Asian students had to file that we're being discriminated against. We're not being allowed to get into Harvard. There are too many smart Asians. They won't let us in. Same judge. And, of course, at that time, they were saying, well, we need a more diverse program. We can't have all these Asians. Well, you're denying them based on their merit. Once again, Steve Miller.
President Trump has ended across the entire federal government all hiring, recruiting, retention, promotion, and training based on race and sex. This includes in our law enforcement agencies. So again, when we took office, even in sensitive law enforcement, national security, and intelligence agencies, we were hiring individuals not on their ability to carry a weapon, not on their ability to keep Americans safe, not on their ability to conduct sensitive intelligence operations, but based upon race and sex. And obviously that is unacceptable. It's going to be merit-based across the whole federal government. But this wasn't just the federal government. This was the private sector, and this was also, of course, our entire university and education system.
And we know too much of that still exists. There are too many opportunities for folks in, quote, power to take one candidate over another based on DEI. You won't know it maybe for a while. We're seeing evidence of that right now in our air traffic controller issues. Qualified individuals who passed the test, were qualified to go on to become air traffic controllers, were denied the job because they did not check all the boxes of the DEI. So now we're short controllers. Those who were on the list, some of them have found other jobs. They're not going to change now. And, of course, the raids continue across the nation by ICE They've been carrying out a lot of them in the greater Boston area. This sweeping operation in that area called Patriot is expected to hit at least 1,500 arrests. It's targeting immigrants like a Salvadoran illegal immigrant convicted of child rape who went to prison, deported in 2017, and then grabbed by ICE living right next door to a children's playground. You want that guy in your neighborhood? I will say again, if you want these kind of people in your neighborhood, you go down there and you sign a release stating, I will be responsible for them. They can come live with me. I've yet to see one of the leftist progressives say, I'll sign that. There's no way in hell they're going to. And yet they will complain because you're sweeping this guy off the street. First of all, he's a convicted sex offender, not even charged, convicted, living right next to a child's playground. That's like giving him a candy store, only we got children at risk. And when it comes to the ICE agents and illegals, there's something very interesting that happened reference these Boston arrests in one of the target areas they hit, Obama's backyard. That story when we continue.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
The Napoli heritage of fine dining continues with Napoli Kirkwood. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. So add that to Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, and don't forget about Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district, Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, plus now, open, Napoli Kirkwood.
This is Larry Connors, USA. Larry Connors, USA.
Dozens of people detained and removed in a large ICE operation on Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard.
So ICE confirmed the details to us this morning in the last hour. The feds say the operations on Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard ended with about 40 people being taken into custody. The Current reports federal agents started pulling people over mid-island yesterday in the morning. The arrest took place on Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and Hyannis yesterday. ICE stated in a press release that the arrests include a member of the MS-13 gang and at least one child sex offender.
Right there in Obama's backyard, Martha's Vineyard. And Martha's Vineyard is very busy this time of year. A lot of folks going up there vacationing, touring. I've been up around the region once. I mean, it's a fine part of the nation. Has some wacko people living there. And I imagine that most of those living there, they don't want all these illegals there because, in fact, it will be a threat against Americans who are going there for vacation. They're going to have to be worried about being assaulted or raped or killed. That will probably cut down on some of those up there until ICE is completing their operation. You remember when Ron DeSantis sent less than 50 up there on a plane direct to Martha's Vineyard. Said, here, have some of the illegals crossing our border. Oh, and they cried, oh, my God, it's an emergency. We can't handle 50. They handle hundreds of thousands every year at Martha's Vineyard as visitors, paying visitors, so they can handle it. But they wanted to claim, well, we can't take care of all these illegals. What are we supposed to do? And Obama knew they were there. He did not come out to greet them. He didn't come out and say, look, I could put some of them on my compound on Martha's Vineyard. He just was tone deaf. Didn't hear a word from him. And all the ritzies. And if you're rich to live in Martha's Vineyard, so be it. I don't chastise you for that, but keep in mind how many other people have helped make you where you are, and you are now dissing on them. I used the word D. I said dissing. All right, I'll put the P back in it. Oh, and here's something that I don't know how to deal with this story, I have to admit. I like to think I'm capable of handling any kind of story. But this story, there is a woman in Ireland, and she's saying, I don't know with the current political climate in the U.S., when will it be safe to come back to the U.S. with my child? I'm not going to push it before this administration is finished and hopefully held accountable for their crimes. Now, who would that be? Rosie O'Donnell. She left the U.S. in high upset anger after Trump got reclaiming the White House. She said, I'm not coming back. Now, she said, I might come back once we get Trump out of there. I do like the fact that she's saying, is it safe to come back with my child? Rosie, at this point, it's not. It's not because of all the illegals in the country, but we're making it better and safer. But here's the other part of it, Rosie. You are one big, ugly joke. She's claiming millions are going to starve and die under the Republicans. They're going to starve and die. Millions are going to go hungry. Millions are going to die. Now, you do know she's labeled, quote, as a comedian. I don't think she meant that as a joke. She really believes it. Rosie, don't bother coming back. Stay where you are. Ireland, good luck with that. Coming up, more on how big tech might interfere with free speech. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. Great patio season to enjoy any of the Cafe Napoli locations. How about the Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield? Enjoying coal-fired pizza, nothing else like it. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. A few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, where you can enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys. Check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook for details, plus gift cards for friends. I'll see you at Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. Ackerman Toyota is #1 in sales for 2024. That is 2 years in a row. It's really no surprise. Ackerman has the largest customer lounge where you can relax, take your time choosing new or premium pre-owned. Ackerman at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Thank you for making Ackerman Toyota #1 2 years in a row. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. I can tell you how to get a free quick quiz to see how artificial intelligence can boost your company's potential. You go to PRIglobal.ai, PRIglobal.ai. St. Louis Business Magazine listing PRI as one of the leading IT companies. And PRI has its own AI lab to develop what your business needs. PRIglobal.ai. PRIglobal.ai.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
The president's spoken about the national emergency that's led us to these giant trade deficits, right? I mean, he spoke about it on the campaign trail, and he wanted to use the sweeping powers of IEPA. Now, he has many, many other laws and authorities that he can use, and he'll take them out if he needs to. But right now, he likes the sweeping authority because it lets him deal with everybody who treats us unfairly, who doesn't treat us reciprocally. He can use IEPA to do the whole world and sort of set America up correctly and protect America from the national emergency. But as you know, we're going to go through the courts, and you should always bet on Donald Trump, because what we've all seen is he does not lose.
He does not lose, and to the extent it would benefit the entire world. Those are the remarks, obviously, of our economic advisor to the president, Steve Luknick, and making it clear there are a lot of things we can do to make our nation better and the world better. Tariffs being part of it. But you have the left complaining he doesn't have the authority to do that. He cannot do that. And it can't declare it as an emergency because we're at a trade deficit. We've been that way for some time. Now it's suddenly an emergency? Well, then riddle me this. Riddle me this. Why was it an emergency for Biden to drain our oil reserves to give gas to people and lower the prices so they would vote for him? There was no emergency then either. It was politics. Our Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said that Trump does have authority in other areas as well he can pursue, but you want to fight with him in court? Put the gloves on. Or better yet, you probably better drop the gloves because he's not going to come at you in a soft way. And the numbers out, the numbers just released today, say everything he is doing, despite the cry from those out in the wilderness, the sky is falling. Despite their cry, it is not falling. And the ground is becoming more stable. Could there be a couple crevices, a couple holes we might step in? Yes, I'm going to acknowledge that. You will never get the left to acknowledge that they're not correct all the time. They're going to insist they are. Wait till I share some of these numbers with you. First of all, welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA. Here we are, May 30. And reminding you, when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. Very easy to do this. You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Larry Connors USA Rumble. And you can also go to Larry Connors USA Facebook. And if you miss any of the program, they all go up, video and audio, as a podcast when we complete. So you will never really miss one. And in fact, if you will sign up with us, we will make sure that you get the program delivered directly to your email box. We do not share your information, but you'll get it sent to you directly. You don't have to go look for it. Let me take a moment to remind you that as we come to the end of May, next month, many of you are probably aware, maybe you're planning on celebrating, that's your choice, National Pride Month. A lot of the businesses have backed away. They just don't want to get wrapped up in that again. They've been down that road. They say woke is dead. And the word from the FBI command to all the agents who want to ask, what do we do for woke? You do nothing if you're on duty. On your own personal time, you can do what you want as long as you're compliant and you're not violating other standards. But what we're going to do here is make the entire month for veterans. We're calling it Vic for Vets Month. Vic, of course, Vic Purcelli, the host of our morning program, right after Mike Ferguson, Gabe Pfeiffer, and Jerome. You have Vic and Ken. They're going to be taking requests. Your emails can be sent direct to Ken. I'll tell you how in a moment. To honor someone you know either in service, has been in service, or you just believe they should be honored for what they did do for our country. They could be living. They could be deceased, not because of war action, but simply because they served. Vic for Vets. You need to please give us name and rank, the branch, if you can, date of service, any medals, awards you want to put in, and additional information that you'd like to be cited as we honor vets. Vic for Vets. Send those emails and the information to Ken, that's Vic's producer, Ken Thunderstealer. But you send it to Ken at NewsTalkSTL.com. Ken at NewsTalkSTL.com. And list the person, what you know about them, rank and everything, and we will have a lot of folks to be honored. We won't get to everyone, obviously, but we'll do our best. You do your part. Make sure that someone you want to be honored and recognized for either current or past service. Take advantage of it. Reminding you, with Larry Connors USA, you're always going to get news, opinion, analysis, and you're going to get an education. And part of the education today is going to involve how are we doing with the tariff fight and the battles and what's actually happening. Let's begin with Treasury Secretary Bassett.
It seems highly inappropriate for the judiciary to wade in here when the Senate had the opportunity to override the president and didn't. So, in terms of separation of powers, the Senate has chosen not to exercise their powers, and the president absolutely has the right to set the trade agenda for the U.S. This administration is committed to fair trade, and we are striking the best deals for the American people, and anything that the courts do to get in the way, both harms the American people in terms of trade and in terms of tariff revenue.
Revenue, trade, all that would benefit Americans and American jobs. And in fact, there are several deals. I know everyone has asked, we got to deal with United Kingdom. And I acknowledge then that was low-hanging fruit to get a deal with United Kingdom. There are other deals that are on the table, at least 40 different ones, that Trump has said, look, we will hold off pushing tariffs on you for another 60 days, but you need to come to the table and let's resolve this. And he's not very patient on a lot of this, but at this point he realizes we might need more time to play things out. By the way, the fact that Trump is not patient is going to weigh very heavily in a story I have before we wrap up this segment involving Iran. Now, back to where we are with the current trade deals, what we're achieving, and what we might hope to achieve. And one of the big ones would be China. Once again, Treasury Secretary Bassett.
There are a couple of very large deals that are close. A couple of them are more complicated. And as we saw with the president's threat of 50% tariffs last Friday, the EU came to the table very quickly over the weekend. So now we've got the EU in motion also.
And what about China, specifically China, and that obviously started in a different place? How can you characterize those talks now?
I would say that they are a bit stalled. I believe that we will be having more talks with them in the next few weeks, and I believe we may at some point have a call between the president and party chair Xi.
That would be very big. In the next few weeks, a direct call between Trump and Premier Xi. And yet, if you listen to the left, all this is going to fall apart. Nothing is going to work. Nothing is going to work. Well, let me give you some of the latest numbers here. As I said, you get news, analysis, opinion, and education. And here's your part of it, your education for today. Prices did climb in April. Barely. Pulling the annual rate of inflation down toward the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Personal income climbing at a rapid rate. The Personal Consumption Price Index. Now, a lot of these, when I start quoting these numbers, they're kind of vague, and especially if you can't see them. But I want to re-emphasize this. The Personal Consumption Price Index climbed to 0.1% in April. That means folks are still spending. Not outrageously, but going up. And it's the second month in a row. Consumers got relief from inflation that they had during the Biden administration. And in March, the index showed prices were flat. Maybe that's why some were out spending. You compare it to a year ago, prices are up just 2.1%. Just 2%. The core prices, now these are the ones that I always insist need to be redirected and emphasized. Core prices exclude the cost of food and energy. Anybody out there, can you live without food and energy? Anybody? Bueller, anybody? No. But they always get cut out to make the numbers look better. And it's done by every administration. It's not just Biden, it's not just Trump. The core prices, excluding food and energy, did go up 0.1%. It is the smallest year-over-year increase since March of 2021. Sounds to me like things are working. And, of course, the trade deficit. It was forecast by the Commerce Department, economists anyway, with that department and others, estimated we would have our commerce deficit would be at $143 billion. It had been $162 billion, so that would actually have been better. But it's better yet. It actually ended up coming in at $87 billion. The deficit in goods contracting. While we're in the midst of this trade battle, wars, and legal battles the Democrats want to keep foisting. One of the issues, obviously, is where are we with the automakers and cars? Steve Miller of the White House.
This morning, GM is putting a dollar figure on how much the president's tariffs will impact the company. The CEO says tariffs will cost GM between $4 and $5 billion this year. The CEO of Ford says he can't commit to not raising prices because of tariffs. Is the administration open to doing more to give automakers relief?
The question, unfortunately, misses the entire point, which is that U.S. automakers have announced dramatic investments and expansions inside the United States. American auto plants are growing, they are expanding, they're opening new facilities, they're expanding existing facilities that are already in operation, because it is now the case that for the first time in our lives, that American cars receive preference in America's markets. The U.S. auto industry used to control the entire world. I believe the number during the heyday was that 70% of all cars in the world were made in Michigan. And now, of course, we've become a tiny fraction of the global market. And the reason for that is because the United States opened its markets to every single foreign cheater and every single foreign nation that subsidized its goods on the face of the earth, and their markets have been closed to ours. Japan closed their market to our cars. The entire EU closed their market to our cars. South Korea closed their market to our cars. All of the countries I just mentioned have tens of billions of dollars of annual trade deficits in automobiles with the United States. These are supposedly pure nations, nations that have at least a somewhat equivalent per capita GDP. So it is impossible under the terms of fair trade, if you have two nations with similar per capita GDP, to have such uneven trade flows in automobiles.
The facts are there. Now move away from major corporations like car makers. A lot of mom and pop, small business operations, how are they going to benefit or not?
The relief for small businesses is going to come in the form of the largest tax cut in American history. A tax cut, by the way, that every single Democrat is planning to vote against. They're voting for a tax hike on every middle-class family of about $4,000. The president has made clear that there will be a 100% expensing for investment in the United States. Companies that invest in the United States will be able to deduct 100% of that cost from their tax liability. This will be the most pro-small business tax bill in American history. And at the same time, this is what you have to understand about the plan, is as they're able to do that, as they're able to reshore those supply chains, that also means they'll pay no tariff. So you'll have the lowest tax environment and there'll be no tariff because their production and supply chains will be in the United States.
So that's a no on tariff relief for small businesses in the short term?
It's a yes on tax relief for small businesses. And again, you only pay the tariff for products that are made outside the United States.
That's good news for small business, obviously. There's some news that happened about a month ago that were not prevalent. We were not aware of. But the word has now come out, and it involved a meeting with the Saudi prince talking to Iran. You better listen to Trump.
Saudi Arabia's defense minister delivered a blunt warning to Iranian officials in Tehran last month. Take U.S. President Donald Trump's offer to negotiate a nuclear agreement seriously or risk war with Israel. King Salman bin Abdulaziz, concerned about regional instability, sent his son Prince Khalid bin Salman to deliver the message directly to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, according to two Gulf sources and two Iranian officials. Prince Khalid met Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, Armed Forces Chief of Staff Mohammad Bagheri, and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi behind closed doors on April 17th inside Tehran's presidential compound, the sources said. While media outlets covered the 37-year-old prince's visit, they did not report the content of his message. Sources said Prince Khalid, who served as Saudi ambassador to Washington during Trump's first term, warned that the U.S. president had little patience for prolonged negotiations.
And he's telling them, you don't want to muck this up. That was a month ago. And 4 additional sources have come forward and said the Saudis delivered that message to Iran because if they don't deal with Trump, they're going to have to deal with Israel. And Israel's ready to launch attacks. Whose answer is going to be heard? What happens next? I've got a guest coming up about a bill that was originally created to protect your privacy and First Amendment rights. And already, big tech has its hands in it, which is not good for you. We'll break out details of that and a massive fraud as well. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
I want to tell you more about Wellington Environmental's dustless blasting services. Wellington can blast paint, grease, graffiti, even stripes off parking lots. Truly amazing and powerful. But can Wellington blast something more sensitive? Yes, Wellington can use dry ice to blast soot and odors off smoke-damaged surfaces right after a fire. Currently, Wellington uses dry ice to clean mold off wood inside a home. Why? Well, dry ice immediately disappears, turns into a vapor. That means no mess to clean up, no damaged surfaces. You need to check with Wellington, always researching and practicing with new, better, faster, safer equipment and products for you. And it's very easy to schedule an estimator for your next project. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 644-4930. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. I've got a great evening planned for you. We start with dining at the Oak Street Inn Lounge in Cottleville. We enjoy sunset on the rooftop, then down to the speakeasy. Just one visit, you're going to see why I'm always talking about the Oak Street Inn and Lounge. Plus, you might want to plan a staycation, a romantic getaway. Check out OakStreetInnandLounge.com for various events this summer. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville.
This is News Talk STL.
Run with the railroad when their backs are turned. Run with the railroad when their backs are turned. Run with the railroad. Get out of their sight. When the engine turns, then you gotta move on, and you gotta move on at night.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. You may not be aware of it, but we're going to make sure you are now. As I said, with Larry Connors USA, you get news, analysis, opinion, and education. There was a bill in 1996 passed, the Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, originally to help internet platforms grow. Well, we know how that went, don't we? And once again, it's subject to being hijacked, and the High Court has a chance to step in. Giving us more background on this, Maureen Steele. She's part of her co-worker with American Made Foundation that connects influential leaders and grassroots movements to drive real change. First of all, Maureen, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Well, we're looking at the issue that what is the problem with this Section 230? We saw in 1996 how it was since been hijacked to an extent for them to use it and protect themselves, big tech forms, things of that nature. What is going on now where we need the Supreme Court to be involved?
So there was nothing originally wrong with Section 230. It has been misinterpreted. So Jason Fick is the gentleman who has tirelessly, and relentlessly brought this case before court after court for the last 7 years. It's been before Circuit Court 9 and 5, and now it's, on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court. What happened was, and where it gets unconstitutional, Facebook can say, you know what, I'm not publishing your article. I think it's misinformation. They have the right to do that. But you, in turn, have a right to sue them at that point, because you can prove it's not misinformation and they're blocking the truth. And it's really not their place, if they're just a bulletin board, to judge what's out there or not. Where your rights get hijacked is when the government steps in and uses 230 to protect them.
Well,
to protect
to that
the
extent,
tech oligarchs from a lawsuit from you for blocking your content.
And to that extent, didn't we just go through that with the Biden election, the Biden administration, how all the big tech was involved and bringing in other so-called legacy media to hide and distort rig elections, and you were not allowed to complain or say anything about it, or you would be banned.
Yes, and this is going to change that, because what it's going to open up is if they do that again, if they reinterpret, and literally what they did was they changed the phrase, the publisher or speaker in Section 230C1 was changed from the publisher to a publisher, and that's made all the difference. And so that's what we need. We need the Supreme Court to look at. Excuse me.
Now,
so if they, let's go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'll give you a chance to catch your breath, but you got it back. So you and your colleague with the American-Made Foundation, we're talking about Ann Vandersteel, you guys think that you can connect with the grassroots again to make sure that the Supreme Court not only hears the case, but understands, pay attention to what has been happening in the past and how it's constitutionally invalid.
Yes. So, and it's American Made Foundation, I just want to clarify, is a 501c3, and that's our education documentary arm. It's American Made Action that is our activist arm. That's the political, legal arm.
Okay.
Under that, we have the Department of Government Accountability and the United Law Coalition. And it's the United Law Coalition that actually wrote an amicus brief to go along, to go to the Supreme Court. General Michael Flynn filed one. He had the NRA as an interested party and a number of other large groups. He filed his the day before we filed ours, and we had 35 people as interested parties on ours, including Sidney Powell, Colonel Douglas McGregor, Laura Logan. Some real powerhouses have jumped on this as interested parties. So, and there was a third one that went in by David Morgan. And just so people can understand, the Supreme Court accepts about 100 cases a year to hear.
Right.
You put in a writ of certiorari for that. And they pick and choose their cases. They tend to pick those that have at least 2 amicus briefs. And so we have 3 going in, plus, many interested parties in those amicus briefs.
So you've got a chance. You're saying you got a chance?
We have a chance. We sure do. We have a chance. We're definitely on their radar. And, I've been writing a lot of articles on it and getting that out there, trying to raise public awareness. And again, to educate people, an amicus brief is a friend of the court report. Basically, that's all it is. It's Latin for that. So we're saying, but as we the people, hey, look at this case, because we're all in agreement that this needs your attention. This needs redefining. So once this gets redefined, we have freedom of speech on the internet again.
All right. Now, as decades of journalism, I am all about freedom of speech. I'm also about the right where the tech companies were protected in the sense that if you're going to have an open forum, anyone can post anything, and you cannot hold the tech company responsible for what someone put up. It's not like they published it, they created it. I've always been in favor of that. Now, how does this compare?
Yes, I too.
How does this compare to what some are saying about Musk now, that Twitter is not so free because he will not allow it to reach maybe the full audience? He doesn't shut it down, doesn't close it off, but there have been more and more allegations that folks are not getting free reach.
Yes, and that's true. They shadow ban, and that's what Facebook did as well. Meta, they'll just suppress your account. And they'll mix up your numbers, and it looks like you've had 5,000 followers for 3 years. Like there's just no way. Yeah. But that's what it shows. So they do stuff like that all the time. There isn't a lot of transparency. They're not government organizations. We can't FOIA that. So we've come to depend on these, these tech companies for, our news, to get, citizen journalism out there, because we certainly aren't getting in from mainstream media. But you're absolutely right. They're all still messing with it. But the beauty of it, once this gets straightened out, is we can sue them for it. If you want to, start a lawsuit, or, get a group of other people that have been suppressed and shadow banned, or blocked because, they're still not allowing, you to get your message out there, whatever it is. Now they're wide open for lawsuits.
So now you're
telling the same thing with election integrity.
Yeah. So now I know why I've been stuck at 300 million watchers on my YouTube channel. Now I know, right?
Right?
maybe
exactly. You
maybe
have 500 million.
Yeah. Our decimals got moved. Decimals got moved. Now, what the interesting thing is, this goes forward. If you don't get in front of the court this time around, I mean, obviously it's not going to go away. As I heard you list, he'd been through at least 3 or 4 lower courts previously. So how vital is it this time?
This is very vital. I mean, we had, elections hijacked with this. We can't have this any longer. We had the whole world poisoned because of this with the shots. because it was misinformation, and everyone's getting shut down. All the doctors that were trying to get the truth out there. The truth can't stay hidden for long. The truth always comes out in the end, and it has. But there's still so many people, you see them out there wearing masks and still getting boosters. They just, mainstream media is still lying to them. They're just not getting the truth. And so this getting fixed is going to allow us to get the truth out there and save lives, save our country. So it's gravely important.
And of course, we're talking about big tech in the sense of internet, things of that nature. But you also have the so-called legacy media, or when it was Biden's administration, as I called it, the government press corps, basically. But their numbers have been dropping off. I just recently, the latest numbers from CNN, and I think, in this fact, I am right, their numbers around 58,000 max a day. I'm pretty sure my numbers are surpassing that.
Yeah. Mainstream media is dead. People no longer believe it. This is definitely, the rise of the citizen journalist, the podcaster. People want the truth, and they know they're not going to find it on mainstream media. Same thing with entertainment. I was just at a meeting last night, actually in West Palm Beach, with this group that, was talking about how Hollywood is dead, and people don't, they're voting with their dollars. Like, they're not spending money on movie tickets and Netflix anymore. And, they want wholesome, real entertainment, and they don't want to be preached to. They don't want these woke agendas. They don't want, fairy tales, all woke. It's, people are done, and there's going to be some big changes and some big shakeups where the rug is ripped out from under these entities that really thought they were untouchable, that they were so powerful. And no one is more powerful than the people. When we exercise our rights and, use our wallets and band together, there's 80% of us that are in alignment with our values and with how we want to see this country move forward. So, as long as we stay united and we move forward in an intentional manner together, we can overthrow this yoke of tyranny. The key is bringing everyone together.
Sounds outstanding. We've got a plan. Execute it. Maureen Steele, co-founder of the American Made Foundation. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Coming up, one of the biggest fraud cases in history, according to the Agriculture Secretary. And no surprise here, but I'll have details when we continue.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
Question: are you looking to unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence for your business? I want you to meet my friends at PRI Global, named by the St. Louis Business Journal as a leading IT consulting firm. 25 years helping local and worldwide companies. PRI Global has a free survey to determine where your company stands in your AI journey. You simply go to priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. And I also have a phone number, so get ready to copy that number. And I'll remind you that PRI Global has its own AI lab, creating, adapting, developing, pushing the boundaries for what AI can do for you. Here's the number, 636-689-0545. 636-689-0545. Or visit priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. Here's great news. Napoli Kirkwood is now open. So that means fine dining right in the heart of Kirkwood. So you have the original Cafe Napoli in downtown Clayton, Napoli 2, Town and Country, Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, plus Napoli Brothers Pasta and Pizza in the Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, and now adding Napoli Kirkwood. What a great place to dine. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. Renewal by Andersen wants you to know this. Andersen products increase a home's value by at least 15%. Renewal by Andersen is the full-service window and door replacement division of Andersen. How do you get through it? You go to rbastl.com, and here's a deal. $279 off every window, $729 off every patio or entry door. No payments, 0 interest, 18 months. RBA STL. You've worked hard for your money, so protect it. Meet my friend Bob Leslie and ask about the Gain and Retain Plan. Leslie Consulting, 40 years in the St. Louis area as a leader in brokerage and risk management. Call 314-721-0066, 721-0066. Oh, and ask Bob how he was the L.A. Dodger #1 pick. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is NewsTalk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
President Trump promised as he was traveling across the country over the last few years that it would not be the government that we know. The government certainly that under Joe Biden exponentially grew, and alongside that, including the fraud and waste and abuse. And so at USDA, we are hyper-focused on rooting out that waste, fraud, and abuse. And to your point, yesterday was, if not the largest, one of the largest stings, and moving forward and finding that fraud, I think almost $70 million that is no longer going to be allowed here in Washington and with these programs like the food stamp program. So we're going to move forward, obviously, in partnership with the FBI, with the Department of Justice, of course, our team at USDA. This is not the one and only. There are going to be many more to come, and we're going to make sure that we're delivering on our promises to the taxpayers.
That is Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins. Who could be against what she just said? We're going to cut out fraud, waste, and abuse. And that means more money intended for Americans will get to Americans. How big is this deal? This is big. The U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, and others all come forward, and they say they have at least 6 individuals criminally charged with a bribery and fraud scheme that generated more than $66 million in unauthorized transactions under the SNAP program, food stamps, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. I know over the decades I've seen stories and been part of stories about how folks using SNAP stamps were going to Vegas and selling them on the streets to other people and then going in the casinos. They never had any right to have them. They certainly had no right to be reselling, and they were abusing it. But it's such a massive thing, and it was just generally accepted. So it was not really a priority. This latest indictment says that since 2019, or starting in 2019, just one of these being charged was supplying 160 unauthorized electronic benefit transfer cards to stores across the New York area. They, just in those cards, stole more than $30 million. All made possible because people who should be doing their job were not doing it. Those who should be watching over them were not doing it. It's theft. I don't care how you look at it. It's theft. And it costs the American public. And we have another kind of theft we need to be worried about in this nation. We brought it up many times before, and that is these spies that are inside our nation, many of them from the Communist Chinese Party. An estimated 17 to 20% of the Chinese students studying in our nation right now are estimated to be directly linked to the Chinese Communist Party and directly supplying whatever they can, whatever intellectual material they could steal in the process of their work with or for a university. And to that extent, Steve Miller of the White House.
China has been engaging in the theft of American trade secrets, industrial espionage, and the wholesale destruction of our intellectual property, our trademarks, our copyrights for years, Laura. They steal our nation's secrets, they steal our nation's industry, and of course they engage in predatory economic practices designed to cripple our industries and bring American manufacturing to a halt. This has been going on for decades, in earnest, of course, since China entered the World Trade Organization. So President Trump has taken firm and decisive action to say that we are not going to allow our immigration system to be used as an instrument of exploiting America's wealth, America's secrets, or America's industrial might.
And yet China is going to continue to push every edge they can. There is a Chinese-owned company that is fighting a bill to ban foreign enemies from buying property in the state of Ohio. We have other states that have done the same thing, tried to pull back, but sometimes they come in with different names, and you have to really go deep to find out if it's involving Chinese communists or it's a front for something else. Because they're not stupid. They know one way to get around things is you just pose as a nonprofit organization looking to help people. Whatever they can, they're going to try. And, of course, the other issue that we've been battling inside our universities is the full woke policy that allowed anyone to come in, especially, well, not in Harvard. They didn't really want Asian students, but I guarantee you the Chinese communist spies did get inside Harvard. And we know that has happened. And we also know that DEI has been rampant, not only through our universities, but businesses and our military. And again, Steve Miller says, this administration says we're shutting that door.
President Trump has ended across the entire federal government all hiring, recruiting, retention, promotion, and training based on race and sex. This includes in our law enforcement agencies. So, again, when we took office, even in sensitive law enforcement, national security, and intelligence agencies, we were hiring individuals not on their ability to carry a weapon, not on their ability to keep Americans safe, not on their ability to conduct sensitive intelligence operations, but based upon race and sex. And obviously, that is unacceptable. It's going to be merit-based across the whole federal government. But this wasn't just the federal government. This was the private sector, and this was also, of course, our entire university and education system.
But if you listen to the left, no, you're discriminating against LGBTQ+. No, we're saying you must meet the merits needed for the JOB. June is National Pride Month, for those of you who are going to honor it. I have some gay friends. They're not that big on honoring it for a full month. They might be involved in a parade or so, but that's it. They said, can we just get on with our lives? Can we just be normal in the sense of what they consider normal that you and I might not? But it's their life. They're adults. What we're doing here at NewsTalk STL is we're countering that. We're making June Vic for Vets Month. We're taking the Pride Month and turning it into Vic for Vets Month. If you know someone who has served, maybe got killed in action, maybe is home, maybe served decades ago, maybe long ago on behalf of our military at some point, and you think they should be honored, not because they died in action, not because of awards and medals they got, but you just want their name called out, here's what you do. You send us their name and their rank and what you know about them, and you send it to Ken, who is Vic's producer. Ken at NewsTalkSTL. Ken at NewsTalkSTL. Send that Gmail in, and we will make sure we get those names, and they're going to start running next week. In the meantime, we're going to see the left continue to lie about everything we are dealing with in this administration is designed to hurt people. Like the Medicaid program. Look at how they're cutting and taking money out of the hands and out of the mouths of children. That's another lie. It's another lie. But Mike Johnson says all they have to do is do work, and it's not that big of a deal.
It just means that you either work or you volunteer, do something meaningful in your community, or you're in a job or work training program. 20 hours a week. I mean, this is not some huge demand. If you're going to be on the public wagon, you have to do something to help pull it if you're able. And again, Jake, the purpose of this is to preserve these very necessary, very important safety net programs for the people who actually need and deserve them, and not those who are gaming the system. And I think I'll go into any town hall anywhere in America, my district or otherwise, and explain this, and everyone nods in agreement and understands it. So the Democrats are trying to twist the facts. They're trying to put out misinformation because they're going to vote against this, and there's no way to defend it. What it means is they're going to be voting for more fraud, waste, and abuse instead of the elimination of it, which is what our package does.
Speaker Mike Johnson appearing on CNN with Jake Tapper, who is trying to spear him with, you guys are actually trying to hurt the American people. You're cutting Medicaid. No, we're not. We're making sure that those who get it deserve it. And if you're an able-bodied man or woman and you can do the job, you should be doing it. Or you can volunteer to help out somewhere. But be doing something to help pull the wagon. Don't just sit on there and make everyone else do it for you. Go stand on a street corner. There are many jobs available. If you can't find one, you either have no interest in getting one. You could be, I'm going to accept that you could be mentally disabled to the extent that you have a hard time holding one. Or you could also be linked into drugs so much you can't hold one. But when they're talking about throwing $4 million off the Medicaid rolls, as you heard Speaker John said, no, we're just telling them, get a job. Otherwise, we will withdraw what you're getting because you are capable of earning. The problem with a lot of these leftists out there has actually been summed up very well. I have to give him credit. MSNBC host Joe Scarborough. He had a Harvard professor on who identified himself as a conservative at Harvard. And he said, I think the president is overreaching in trying to go after Harvard. He said, while I was there, even though I was leading some conservative operations, I felt welcome. They didn't try to shut me down. He said, I was treated decently. Joe Scarborough then wanted to point out that, well, if you were a conservative Harvard Law School, any time you open your mouth, you better have thought about it 20 times because you're going to get crushed. And here's where Scarborough is correct. He said why the left might be adrift and at loss, and the other side is that the intellectual laziness every time occurs when you open your mouth. Everyone around you agrees with you. You're all part of groupthink. You never get challenged with your view. I don't mean you get in someone's face and argue and shout, but debate facts. You don't have people around you that are capable of doing that. Or they're just too lazy. Dan Bongino came out and said, I've got an update on the Epstein case, and we have more information coming for you.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't. Right. There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not. There's video of him killing himself. No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay. There was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. but there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
And, of course, there will still be some who say it got doctored. I'm going to accept the fact that Bongino, one as a Secret Service agent in the past, and then, of course, with his broadcast empire, and now second in command of the FBI, he's giving it to you as straight as he's got it. And, of course, then there's the cocaine in the White House, which has continued to anger him. He says, I don't know why anyone else was not upset. Cocaine is inside the White House? He said, if I were a Secret Service agent, I would have been demanding more answers. Then, of course, we have the J-6 bomber who went around leaving bombs at the DNC and the RNC on January 6th. He said, we're going to get more answers on all those to you. And I'm glad, because I complained the other day. I don't think they're telling us everything if they're not going to show us the video. He says they're going to. Of course, there'll be those complaining, oh, it's all been made up. Kind of like it's been made up that Greta Thunberg, you know, the teenager, she's headed for Gaza with a shipload of anti-Israeli activists. Greta Thunberg, who made her headlines as being an environmentalist and got a lot of attention from Al Gore and the rest of them, she is now going with a group of pro-Palestinian activists to Gaza to stand with them, to march with them. This is while Gaza is still under attack by Israel. And Thunberg has accused Israel of genocide since the October 7 massacre. Something's wrong with that girl. Enjoy your weekend and remember our pledge. One nation under God.
You can follow Larry on Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.